When we saw it coming from 9 miles up the river, we had to pull our boats up the shore so that they wouldn't get washed away because Nenana had a huge wake,
That's right,
and it
that's
could
right.
wash our boats out if we didn't,
Yes,
so
yes.
we had to run around and secure our boats as it was coming.
Before Cochrane, there's a big bend. They got to come around that big bend, and everybody used to run down to the boat. They holler, "Steamboat, steamboat!" Everybody gets all excited. And during the younger years, my grandfather had a store in Cochrane, and all that stuff was brought down by the steamboat.
That's right, that's right.
Primarily the steamer Nenana.
Yeah.
The villagers always, had a big do when the boat got in, had a dance and everything there. And so half the crew would stay up all night and be in bad shape the next day.
The first barge come, the cooks used to bring oranges, apple, and banana, and grapes to the village free for the kids that's under 10 years old. They, I don't know, hundreds of pounds, the cooks. And just donate to the village. Grapes we really like. Banana they couldn't keep it too long. But how they ship it to the villages, they put it in the apple, oranges, and grapes, banana. They put it in a sawdust box to keep it fresh,
It was pretty good because we didn't have no fresh fruit at that time, and to get an orange or a banana, man, that was really something. And we would look forward to the barges when they came in.
And I remember the steamer Nenana or the Alice stopped in Ruby. And back in them days, you didn't have forklifts. And they had a long gangway going down to the barge. And them guys, I see them struggling up there with that hand cart you got over. Holy cow, that looked like long, hard work. And they had to go a long ways.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ruby had a big store. Yeah, some guy was telling me he was on that boat during them times, and he said they used to have contests who could take the heaviest load. And I seen them guys come up with hellacious loads.
Oh, yeah. Same.
Boy, they had to be strong.
Yeah.
Everybody in town would be down there. Yeah, it was really exciting. If the guys weren't working, they'd be they're just watching what's going on. Once in a while, a guy would come up with too big of a load, on this in his truck, and he'd tip over and lose his load partway up.
It was kind of interesting, like at Ruby, they had a ramp, a kind of a permanent ramp that came down to the shore there, and it's on a hillside, So when they unload, they have these hand trucks that they put the freight on, and there'd be 2 or 3 or 4 of them kind of chained together. So the winch on the boat pulled the whole mess of them up the hill to the NC store. So,
and it was a source of income for a lot of people that that they could unload freight there because they'd get all their stuff in the summertime. Man, they had big warehouses. They had was plumb full of stuff.
And they would be pushing a couple of barges?
Yeah, sometimes 4 big
What would be
barges.
tell me about the barges. What would be on the barges?
Everything. The gasoline they used to bring in by drums, and then the case gasoline, almost all of them. The gasoline came in cases, 2 cans in each case, and man, just about everything came in. Heavy equipment for out the mines and everything. Ruby was a mining town actually, and so there was a lot of all their equipment came in on the barge.
When we were, I guess we were 13, somewhere in there, Charlie Ketzler, the Ketzler family.
Yes, I know the Kettlers.
Charlie and I contracted a car of coal, about 40 tons, and they were hauling coal. Everybody burned coal.
Yes, yeah.
They were hauling coal down the river. And so, contract would be $100 each. Took us 5 days to shovel that coal.
That's good money back.
Into bags and tied them up with wire and stack them on the end of the car. And then they would lift them out
with a crane onto the barge.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, we worked on that. In the summer it was hot.
Oh yeah, hard work. Hard
Then
work.
we would take a break, smoke cigarettes.
Yeah, of course, we all smoke that shit.
It was the first trip in the spring, and the boat had already taken 2 barges down and parked them at Tanana, and then came back and picked up 3 more, and then so from Tanana on down the river, we had 5 barges with the boat.
Oh my gosh. Pushed in the front?
One on each side and 3 ahead.
Yeah.
There was often somebody out on one of the barges sounding,
Mm-hmm.
but I didn't have radar in those days.
Well, what was left of my family, my father and I, older brothers and sisters were in boarding schools.
Mm-hmm.
So when my grandmother died, who raised me, my father got me out of the village as quickly as possible.
Mm-hmm.
So just he and I traveled together.
Mm-hmm.
And so we caught the steamboat in Holy Cross and came all the way to Nenana, which is,
Yes,
what
yes.
it did. And
Oh, we run all over the place.
Yeah.
Except we couldn't go up where the captain was.
Yeah.
They didn't allow us to go up
In the
there.
wheelhouse, yeah.
Yeah, we was running all over the place. It was fun. Yeah, nothing boring on that boat.
There was only, as far as passengers go, there was only the 2 of us, a retired doctor, a young school teacher, and a guy rode part way from Tanana down a ways. I remember he scroungy looking guy with a beard. He and the doctor sparred a little bit. And
I knew a lot of the boys that were working on the ship, and I think they weren't supposed to really hobnob with us.
Right.
But I probably violated the rules, and they had to be polite to me because one of the boys I had seen before elsewhere. I don't know if you want the whole sordid story, but when I was 11 years old, he was on the plane, and us kids from the village would run out to the plane when it landed, any plane, that was just exciting.
Yeah.
And he didn't get off the plane, he was on his way to Holy Cross. I was 11 years old at the time, and he was 3 years older than me, so he was probably about 14 or 15. And I looked in there, and he was this gorgeous guy,
Yes,
and
yes.
I wasn't really interested in boys, but he was beautiful.
Right.
He had these beautiful blue eyes, light blue eyes. I thought, man, I mean, we didn't have any blue-eyed people in our village.
That's
and
right.
I think I'd never seen one before, and I'm sure I just stared at him, and I didn't know about polite behavior. Well, I knew I wasn't supposed to stare, but
Right,
I
right.
did. And he just looked back at me, and then I found out later that his name was Mike Dementive.
Uh-huh.
And then I don't know when we boarded. Oh, we walked towards where the steamboat boarded, and Mike and some other boys were working on the steamboat. His brothers and 2 cousins that I met, and there are probably others, but those are the ones I met.
Right.
So he said, "Hi, Liz," to me, and I said to Frida, "He knows my name. I wonder how he learned my name." Anyway, so when we got on the boat, then somehow I met him, and of course I was 14 years old and beginning to be really interested in boys,
Right,
and
right.
he was the cream of the crop, So we had a nice big romance on the steamboat, my first ever, And all his free time we would spend together.
Yeah.
And then I met his cousins, and I have pictures.
That would
I have a
be great.
picture he wouldn't take a picture with me. He was camera shy. And I didn't have the skills to say, well, I'll have something to look at,
Right.
But his cousin Luke, I talked to you about Luke Dementive. Luke has passed away now, but Luke, I have a nice picture of Luke with his arms around me. And then another one with another cousin, another Dementive. Yes, George Dementive. So we have a nice picture of me and George and Clara McCarty from Ruby. And
But that was quite an experience. There was my brother and Judy and I, 3 of us, and And we got put into nice rooms. We had white sheets there, and a far cry from the fish camp settings we had. We didn't know what sheets were.
I vaguely remember bunk beds. My dad slept on the bottom, and I think they were just like bunk beds.
Yes,
They
they
may
were.
have pull downs in some of the rooms, but I didn't see that. And then Lillian Walker, one of my cousins, was also in a couple of doors away from us, and I spent the night with her sometimes, because we were friends too. So,
Right.
and she was having a romance as well. She was a beautiful girl, just beautiful, breathtaking.
I had a stub of the ticket or something. It was actually a paper thing, but like a copy or something. And I gave that to Candy Wagman years
Oh, I
ago.
remember Candy.
So it did have a price on it, but I'm of the opinion it was $75 or something like that.
Seems like a lot.
Well, it was
Well, how many days? Oh,
about a week.
okay. Well, maybe. And your food was included, right? And your lodging, so maybe not too bad.
They served eggs for breakfast, which my dad used to do that once in a while because I didn't live with him, but I, visited him a lot. But I had breakfast with my dad. He probably ordered for me, but they weren't, I think, probably eating steaks, but we kind of had, I don't remember anything unusual about the meals, I mean, they were fancy, and they were on schedule and so forth. We ate when we were hungry, so.
Then we went to the dining hall, and that was quite impressive. They had waiters in white uniforms, and they served really extravagant meals with white tablecloths, and they brought you the food.
Now, what kind of food did they serve?
Oh, everything, but I remember olives quite, because I wouldn't eat olives because I didn't know what they were.
Were they black or the green or both?
The black ones.
Black ones,
Yeah, the black ones, yeah.
Yeah.
And that was really an adventure for me. We stopped in Canada, and then we stopped in Minto, and they were good to us. My mother knew the cooks, so she'd take us down to where they were cooking meals and everything. We had cake and all the good stuff to eat because she knew those guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was wonderful. They catered to us, and I felt pampered, It just, I have nothing but marvelous memories.
Well, I was 19, and two of us printers at the Newsminer decided that'd be a nice trip to make. So the other fellow was actually the one who arranged it, and we went all the way from Nenana to the end of the route at the Holy Cross.
Okay.
And
Kinda checking.
there was about a new village every day.
Do you remember how many different villages you went by?
Well, I know parts of the river. From Holy Cross, probably the next place was Anvik, and then probably Caltag, Nulato, Galena, and maybe Ruby, and Tanana probably. And I think we paused at Tolovana because they had an arrangements with the school teachers who lived there to either receive or send. So we paused there a bit, and then I don't know, about the 5th or 6th day we got to Nenana.
Yeah, and then we went back down the river to Holy Cross, and then Nick said, well, we're going to stay in Holy Cross. Well, I was stuck. He said, no. He said, Nenana's coming up the river. You can get on that. Nenana's going up the White Horse.
It did that usually at least once a year.
Yeah, well, I was going to go up there, and, well, what am I going to do to get up to White Horse? I didn't have any money.
Right.
How do I get back to Nenana?
Mostly went from Nenana to Marshall. I think it was 800 miles down the river. And it'd take about 2 weeks to make the trip, depending on what we ran into. If you got stuck on a bar or something, then they'd have to unhook the barge. And generally they had 2 barges on the Nenana. And then they'd take and wash under the barge with the stern wheel
until it got enough water to float it off and then drag it off. A lot of times they'd hang up and they'd be hung up for 2 or 3 days. Or the steamer Nenana never hang up very much, what those other boats generally did, but that guy that was running it was named Cap Adams, and he was one of the first riverboat captains to ever come up the Yukon River. Go to work the first trip down the river and till the last trip back up the river. And it'd be probably in 1st of June or something, or sometime in June, would make the first trip. And then you'd be all done by October.
There was guys from all the way, there was some Caltech boys and Kayakuk and Tanana. They were boys from up and down the Yukon. They picked them up all over.
Was that considered a pretty good job for a young man in the village to be able to get on the boat?
Oh yeah, there was hardly any jobs at all, except what you could get at the mines but working on a boat was pretty good income.
It was one of the hardest jobs I ever had in my life. I had to do all the dishes for the passengers and crew, and there was a crew of 20. Plus how many ever passengers there was, 10 or 15, And then I worked down in the bottom where the cooks were cooking, and the pots and pans really got me, because I'd get mad at the cooks because they'd be mixing something up in one pan, and then they dump it in another pan. And I'd say, why didn't they just keep using that one pan? I have to wash 2 pans now. But my shift started at 5 o'clock in the morning, and it went till 9 o'clock at night. And I made $30 a month, but that was fine, But about every other trip, I'd think, God, I'm going to get off of this. It's too much work. And I stuck it out for 2 years.
Oh, I was deckhand. And deckhand is, we worked 6 hours on and 6 hours off. And we loaded the barges and unloaded them, and then we had to measure the water going down the Nenana to make sure that we're in the right channel. I never did that before, so it was interesting. I enjoyed it. We worked continuous all year round. All 24 hours a day. So when we got done with our 6 hours, we'd either go to bed, or being young people, we stretched it a little bit. Like in Nenana, they had a mission there, and we used to go down to the mission and dances all the time down there. And there was the girls down there. And when we were in Nenana loading the barges up there, we'd put all we'd have to, there'd be a whole bunch of stuff for Holy Cross or somewhere, and we'd put them way in the back there, and then to work our way up to the closest ones, and probably Tanana would be up front there, and then we'd just unload when we went to each one of those villages.
Were the barges where they primarily carried the freight, or was there freight on the Nenana, or what? How did they work?
No, just on the barges. There was no freight on the barge, on the boat itself.
They were probably carrying wood or the oil or their supplies. Huh?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay.
Right.
So the stern wheeler was almost kind of like what we would think of as a tug these days.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep. We slept in the back, right in front of the paddle wheel in the back there. Okay. Then the kitchen was up front there. Mm-hmm. And then right in the front itself was the boiler.
A lot of times the guys would gather during a break out on the deck, the front deck, and they would play music, and I would listen. I and others would listen.
My stepfather got to work on the steamer Nenana, but he was a waiter. And he grew up out in the woods, and, he's used to hard work. So they made him a waiter. And I can imagine him, big, tall guy, standing there with a white uniform on, and he belonged in the woods. So he was serving the clam chowder. And Captain Adams, I think Captain Adams around for a long time.
Yep.
And Captain, you want some clam chowder to wash down your tonsils? Captain got mad and fired him.
Oh,
My stepdad had to go back to the deck force. That's where he belonged anyway.
One time we went down with a load down to from Nenana to Tanana to help the Alice up through the rapids. So because they didn't have enough power to push their barges up through the rapids there, so we hooked onto them and pulled them through there, and went back up Nenana and got our load and went down. They used to get stuck fairly often too, especially in the fall time when the water went down. Yeah. I remember one year that they froze in at the Mount Novi at 45 miles above Ruby, and they built a cabin for the people, and they had 2 people that stayed there all winter and watched the barge.
And back in them days, they were burning wood.
yeah.
Lots of wood. I think they burned a cord an hour or something like that. And my grandfather, Bill Burke, got a contract with them, and he cut 80 cords above Minto for the steamboats. There were stacks of wood all up and down the river.
Yeah, they employed a lot of people up down the river.
Yeah, and
wood.
I wonder. Apparently, they burned green wood too. They burned everything.
They could, right?
And I burn green wood myself too, but I try to have trouble keep the fire going.
Yeah.
Yeah, boy, you guys had to be good firemen.
Yeah,
They did stop to get wood, but,
Okay,
you know,
okay.
I was used to that part because we
Right.
cut wood for them along the
okay.
villages, and there was a stack of wood across from our fish camp on the Yukon. So they stopped there periodically and picked up wood while we were living in the fish camp. So I knew about that
Right.
part, and I didn't pay much attention to that.
I came in when they were started burning oil then. The year before, I think, or 2 years before, my brothers worked on there, and they used to have to load wood. But by the time I got there, they were already starting to burn oil.
The people that would supply the wood, I guess they used to have to supply a heck of a lot of wood when it was burning wood. Was that a good revenue source?
Oh, yeah.
Was that a good
Oh, yeah.
business for somebody in the village?
Yeah, everybody that wasn't doing anything would cut wood along the Yukon and pile it up there, you know, and steamboat would stop and get it. Like old Edgar Nollner, he told me that he had contract for 100 cord, and he used to have to haul it out and put it on the bank, and with his dogs.
The wood piles were about every 30 miles, or where there was good timber to cut. And they'd let out a contract to somebody. He couldn't cut less than 100 cords to get a contract. And then most of those real dyed-in-the-wool woodcutters would cut 200 cords in the winter. They had 2 guys in the fire pit. One of them was opening the door, and the other guy was throwing a stick of wood in and then closing the door. And they took turns doing that. And they'd change about every 2 hours to somebody else.
They changed during the war
Okay,
because they couldn't get
right.
woodcutters, you know.
And Dad would be in conversation when the Nenana was in, and they would be on. We would all be on. We could walk around on the boat. They'd be going through the machinery back there because Dad was a steam. I don't know, expert. He knew about steam, and he did all that on the boats, the steamboats.
Yeah, and that's one thing, you know, when it went from coal to oil, they still use steam. So, right.
Oh, yeah.
You still had it, yeah.
Yeah, they just had the tank. They installed tanks down below, and they ran on diesel, and we knew it.
Yeah, and they
But they
did
still
that.
had the tubes. The boilers were the tubes.
They switched over in 1948. And when did your dad come to Nenana?
That would have been 49.
49,
So they'd have
right?
been diesel when he
Yeah,
got there.
right. That would have been about the first year.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he was probably pretty valuable because it was something they were learning, you know.
I was kind of a steam buff anyway. You know, I like steam trains and things. And so I spent some time down in the engine room. The boiler was in the front, and the engines were on each side in the rear. And the stroke on the engine, I don't know exactly what it was, but it's something like at least 3 feet. So the cylinder just turned fairly slow, because it made one round and the other cylinder was opposed to that. And but the back of the boat was cross braced with big turnbuckles and things.
Oh, yeah.
And so when the engines worked opposite each other, why the back of the boat creaked, and twist a little bit.
A little bit.
Now, your dad used to pull the boats out of the river up onto the bank in Nenana. Can you tell us how that was done?
Well, as I remember it, and I could be wrong from what I remember, the side, I don't know if they call them davits here or what, but they're where they tie up, the lines, aren't that strong.
Right.
As I remember, the cables, there were about 6 or 7 winches, 6 winches up on the beach, way up.
Okay, because I was curious about that. There were winches that were up there. Okay.
At the head of bunts or bents or whatever you want to call them, but they were the big timbers on piling that slanted down to the water. And low water come in, Nenana would come in sideways, be positioned just right. And these cables went under and came up on the outside of the boat.
Now they went under the boat?
That's my understanding.
Yeah. How did they get those under the boat?
Well, I think they were already there.
Ah, okay.
And I'm trying to think if they maybe had, I don't remember them cables having tail holes, pulleys down there. But maybe they laid these cables out with buoys or something before the boat.
Yeah.
Because they were, as I remember, and I could be really wrong on this, I keep thinking, am I right or wrong? But there's timbers along the outside of the, placed along the outside of the boat on the hull. And the cables came up hooked to those timbers. So the power was coming under the boat, bringing it up sideways. That's what I remember. Now, I could be just so far out.
Now, you said your dad would be up on the top?
He'd be up on that deck, not the tip top, but out on the topper deck. And he'd be directing these winches. So if he
Did
was
he do it by hand or was he yelling?
just signals. If he was watching the way the boat was coming up. So if the boat got a little bit or something, he'd be pointing at different winches. He had like 6 or 7 guys he used all the time, hired. And he'd point, and then they'd either slack a little bit or they'd pull a little harder or to keep this boat sliding. Now, that's a hell of a big boat.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
How long did it take to get it out of the water up on the bank?
Oh, all day. That's a slow pull.
Oh, yeah.
But we greased all those bunks. We had buckets, the boys.
Right. Now, you said that they put lumber down on the ground and you grease those?
No, even in the diorama in there, you see those we call them bents going down to the water.
Oh, yeah.
With the boat set on. You put grease on top of those so the boat would slide. So those had to be greased up. And it took a lot of grease. And you got grease on them and us and everything else, kids slapping it around.
Right. Now, I've seen the boat slide down those and go into the water.
Yeah.
So I'm envisioning what you're talking about now. I never
saw the boat go in. I just maybe wasn't there or something.
Yeah, we do have videos of it.
Yeah,
and
that's
it's
what they said.
And it's.
I never saw it being let go.
Yeah,
because
it went down pretty fast.
It would be off kilter. If it got off kilter, you got a problem.
Oh yeah, yes.
Or if it's stuck.
Yeah.
Well, later on, all the planes started with bringing in all the stuff, and so they didn't do like they did before.
Yeah.